This is the Leadway Wealth Builders Podcast, episode 196, and today I'm going to be breaking down one of the books that I just completed. I'm going to be breaking down just a couple of the quotes, and it's mainly about learning through action. So if you haven't listened to this podcast before, this is the Leadway Wealth Builders Podcast, and my name is Chris Rickenbaugh. I am documenting my journey in real estate and business while also bringing on high-level investors to share their stories about how they built their businesses. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok to follow along my journey, and that link is chris.rickenbaugh at chris.reicenbach. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much. Leave us a like, rating, and review, and what type of topics you would like to hear on the podcast. We're currently lining up more guests to be able to come on the show and share their stories, so make sure you tune into those episodes. But let's hop into today's topic. So I just finished reading the E-Myth for the second time as we're getting under contract to buy our first business. We have a couple meetings with attorneys today. We've met with the sellers again, and now we're in the capital raising stage to be able to purchase the business. So having multiple meetings with investors, and I was reading back through this book because it's a really, really good highlight on what a small business needs to do to be able to run like a large business. And the first time I read this, I was really thinking about how when I was working for the startup company, I'm like, man, if they just implemented some of these things, they would be running like a well-oiled machine, because they just needed to be able to make a couple tweaks. They were just kind of, not running it like a hobby. They had some systems and processes, but to be able to grow and scale, they didn't really have like the idea behind what that actually meant and what needed to be done. It was just work harder, to where if you have a system, that system's going to be able to do that hard work for you and take out a ton of what they're already doing. So the first time I read it, I had my mindset more towards that. But now, after being in business for myself for a little over a year and a half now, I'm able to really apply it to what I'm doing. And then through the business purchase, it's a really good refresher on what I'm going to be doing, because, my first idea of purchasing the business is I need to be able to come in and run it myself, because I want to build this operations manual and I want to be able to learn and understand this business and make it stupid simple to where I can just hand somebody a folder, and that way, we can go through very simple trainings and that they can do that job. So I knew this book talked about it, and I wanted to go through one of the quotes on the final pages, and because learning through action is the best way to do it. And this is something I've learned through the past year and a half in real estate, that, if you're never in the game, you're never going to be able to learn. So having a couple conversations with people over the past couple of months, it's, I'm scared to get in. They want to make sure everything is buttoned up and dialed in before they take that first step. But, it's going to be so hard to take that first step when you're waiting for all the lights to be green before you leave the house. So this quote talks about, it's time to act, because until you do, you won't understand it. And when you do, there will be nothing left to think about. You'll be well on your way. Until then, it's just another good idea and just another creative thought. So that was something in real estate for me starting about a year and a half ago, and being able to buy that first house, because I remember quitting the job and, going, well, I'm going to start the podcast. I'm going to start posting on social media. And where do I go with this now? So being able to, start saying, okay, well, I know I want to be in real estate, so let me start looking at houses. Let me start making calls. And then it really just spitballed from there to be able to go and start walking these houses. And then we got in, started buying flips, and you guys can follow the line from when I quit the job all the way through where I am now, with buying over double-digit houses over the past year and a half. And, we have learned a ton, really, really tough lessons, and now we're just kind of looking to reset. We've been kicked in the teeth over here for the last year and a half, and we kind of were able to see and talk to all these wholesalers, talk to a bunch of real estate people, and, what I didn't love about it is that when we're using our active income for, flipping and wholesaling, we're chasing that chunk by chunk. And that was something that kind of showed to me, because anybody starting a business, what they're really looking for is they're trying to have kind of like a subscription-based process to where there's consistent cash flow coming in. And then through flipping and wholesaling, that's just not the way it is unless you build this massive business, and that takes a lot of time. Otherwise, you're on the phones working agents, trying to call sellers, trying to find these distressed homes and hoping that somebody is open to this offer, and then it comes into the selling. So I didn't like the hope and praying that somebody would come in, or, somebody would have this off-market deal. And, I do know it's about selling, but I didn't like the hoping and praying that, just somebody has this house that nobody else has seen and I can be able to offer and lock it up and then resell it. So that's why we're moving over into buying the businesses, and just being able to go and have the conversations with the attorneys, have the conversations with the sellers, and be able to have conversations with brokers. It's really kind of opened up my eyes to, this is a lot like what I'm doing already, except I need to buy one of these, and this is going to be able to provide more income than I would flipping or wholesaling and just grinding hour after hour, all these phone calls. And a lot of that came from the conversation with Gideon Spencer, and you guys can go back and listen to that episode. But that's what we're moving into now. So being able to learn through the action of doing it, we're already leaps and bounds ahead of, where we were a couple months ago, like 6 months ago, when I wasn't looking at any of this. And a lot of it came through taking the action, calling the brokers, looking at numbers. Hey, what am I looking at? What's EBITDA? What's net operating income? How do we figure out the cap rate? Is this a good business to be able to buy based on this? How many employees does this business have? We're able to really dive in through that to where now, we're focused on stabilizing. So depending on how this business goes, if we're able to find the money, having some really good conversations with some private lenders right now to be able to purchase it, what does that look like? Goal number one is to put all focus on buying this business right now. And then those cards will be able to fall into place, because that will be our active income. And then the flipping and wholesaling, that will be kind of on hold for a while as we get the business running, as we get the marketing going, and being able to, just create the consistent income. So I just wanted to share that. Learning through action is the best way to be able to learn. We've done that through real estate for the last year and a half. Really, really tough lessons, for sure. But, being able to, develop and grow and see, hey, I don't think this is actually what we want and how we want to grow our business. We start looking over here and says, I like that a lot more. Bigger numbers, bigger deals, and it might take a little bit longer, but this is something that's going to be able to solve our issue. And all we have to do is get one of these. We don't have to go and find 20 properties to be able to make that same amount. So I just wanted to leave you with that today. Something kind of as I'm going through, I wanted to be able to make these Tuesday, Wednesday episodes, something that, I'm learning as I'm going through, and being able to leave the Friday episodes for interviews. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. This is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off.